my channel. Today we're going on to part 2 of our little spaniel, and we're going to start getting some fur in. Now, I was going to do this part of the tutorial coming across to the ear, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to get a lot of this head hair in first, and then we've got a base for the ear to work on top of. I hope that's okay with you guys. If you wanted to do the ear next, just wait for part 3. Part 3 will be definitely the ear. And making a start on that ear. But yeah, I after looking at this piece and thinking how I would approach it naturally, I am thinking that we need some more structure to the face first. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom you in a little bit, and we're just going to get started on more of this fur. Okay, hopefully you can see this. So I'm just going to go in and lift some of this graphite. And I'm going to start off by using my ivory. And my ivory is going to be my base layer. And I'm just going to follow this direction. So this is like the top of this eyebrow area. Along here. Then I'm going to come in with my cinnamon. And I'm using shorter pencil strokes now because the fur's getting shorter along here. And then I'm going to go over that with the gold. I'm also going to start, so there's going to be some little focus tutorials coming up. Now, as you're watching this, one of the tutorials should hopefully be up. And it will be me doing a little hedgehog. I've got a little original piece on the go of a little African pygmy hedgehog. And I'm going to do like not a real time, maybe, I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to do a tutorial basically on how I'm going to do the spikes and just approaching the spikes. Obviously it's not a tutorial for you all to follow along with, but hopefully you'll pick up like tips and tricks from that. This is the cinnamon. So yeah, I think if I'm doing any little pieces of work, I'm just going to do smaller tutorials where I can, especially my originals, on how I'm approaching a certain piece to help you when it comes to tips on your originals maybe. Now I've got the Bistre. Okay, and I'm just going to bring that along here. Remember, we've got a lot of brownish and reddish tones to get in this fur to really build it up. Okay, right, I've got my base layer and I'm going to do it along here. Now, I'm not too worried. I have lifted some of the graphite and you can see some of the graphite's got a bit darker. I'm not too worried about that. It's going to use a darker brown there to cover it up, so that'll be okay. But if you've pressed hard, you just want to erase the graphite a bit better. Okay, so I've got a bit of a base layer there. Then going in with my Nougat about halfway down the head here. Very light layers. Remember, we're going to be building up this tones in this fur very lightly. So I'm just going to use light pressure along the head here. And again, I'm constantly looking at my reference photo to build up the fur direction. Okay, that's the Nougat. And then I'm going to take the burnt sienna. Now, very lightly. I don't want this to be too ready because it's more of a purplish tone, but this is just going to apply like almost like another base layer to go on top of. So I'm just following those tonal values that I can see and the changes in tones along the bottom here. Very, very light pressure. You can see how light these layers are because we're still seeing some grain of the paper, which I'm not worried about because we will build on top of this. Okay, I'm then going to take the Caput Mortuum Violet. So this is the Caput Mortuum Violet now. And I'm just going to sort of medium pressure over that burnt sienna. And just going to create some of that fur. And then upwards. And take my Venetian Red over the top of that. And then back in with my Caput Mortuum Violet. Over the top there, so you can see we're just starting to get a nice reddish tone. Taking my Nougat again. On the burnt sienna. Okay, so I've left this area sort of lighter, so I'm just going to get my cinnamon again and come in here with the cinnamon. The Venetian Red. Very lightly, and then go over the top of that again with the cinnamon. So I want everything to start to blend together. And then I'm going to take my Nougat. And at this point we're just starting to really blend all these colours together. Get in the direction of the fur, and we are obviously lacking some detail. The detail we will add. I just want these tones to be correct. We'll be adding detail very, very soon. Okay, and then I'm going to take the gold. Over the top of that cinnamon. And then take my, I think my light flip. No, actually, we're going to take 1 grade 2 over that cinnamon area. and gold, just to help smooth that out and knock that gold colour back a little touch. Like so. Okay. Right, I'm now going to take the warm grey one along the top of this head here, where it's really pinkish in tone. And I'm going to use the warm grey one as my base layer. And I'm sort of fading out that base layer at the edges, you see. And bring that along here, just fading it out along there. And again, I'm going to bring that about halfway down this head here with the warm grey one, up to the point where we can see the ears joining the head, and about to here. And then I'm fading that out. And then I'm going to take the ivory and go over that warm grey one. And then back to the cinnamon. And I'm going to use the cinnamon and just sharpen this. And I'm going to follow the fur direction with the cinnamon over this base layer. Oops, sorry, didn't realise that had gone blurry. I think it's when my hand's in the way, it's focusing on my hand. I need to work out the focus on this camera. I'll get there one day, guys. I promise. One day we'll have a tutorial without any problems. This is kind of why I'm hesitant to do I'd love to do a Patreon, so that you get exclusive tutorials, but till I figure out my lighting and my camera, definitely hesitant to set it up. Okay, that's the cinnamon over all of that base layer. Just a bit harder there, it's not as pinkish. Okay. Then taking the beige red and just running that over the top of the cinnamon. Okay, so starting sort of in this corner, I've got the brown ochre, and I'm just going to map in these sort of curls, clumps of fur that we can see with the brown ochre. And then over the top of that brown ochre, I'm going to use the light red violet. Right over that top there. And then back into with the cinnamon. Over the top, and a little bit of gold. Back to the light red violet. So purple's a really good tone and colour to use, hue to use when you're doing brown fur. So really use your purples when you've got a brown dog on your drawing board. Back to the cinnamon. Oops, sorry, I hope you can see that. There we go. Trying not to get it to focus, not too much on my hand. So purple's going to be really good for like the dark areas of brown fur. So you can see how like here we've used the Caput Mortuum violet, and we've used the light red violet here. So we've got these purple tones which are acting as our shadows. I've got the gold again, and I'm just gonna come along here again with the gold, just mapping some of the shapes, so the lines. And let me see if I can, oh, there we go. Hopefully that'll keep you focused on there now. So I'm just mapping in some of the lines that I can see that are being created by the clumps of fur. And then I'm going to go over the top of that gold with the cinnamon again, just to help blend it out. And then I'm just going to take the ivory, circular motions just along this edge, and it's just going to give like a smoother, I don't want a straight edge, I kind of just want a soft edge along here. So those circular motions are going to help. Okay, so got back to my ivory, and we're going to go back to using the ivory as the base layer for this section. So I'm just going to rub over the top of that just to help blend, and ivory is a base layer now. Right up to where that ear is going to be. So you can see that by doing this, we know now where this ear is going to be. We're getting the colours into her face, and once we've sort of got some of these tonal values down, we're going to go in with our darker tones and add that detail, which is really going to make this fur pop. Now coming back in with my cinnamon over the top of all this ivory base layer. So you can see for this part of the fur we've used purples, greys and pinks. We've not actually used any browns yet. But once we've got this area mapped in and started adding the darker tones and the details, you'll see how it's going to look like brown fur, but brown fur in the sunlight. So these lighter areas of fur that we're doing with the cinnamons and the light flesh, or the beige red, is where we've got more light hitting the coat. Okay, that's the cinnamon. I've got my 1 grey 2, and I'm just going over just where I've got some clumps of fur with the 1 grey 2. Oops, sorry. Try and focus it on one section. I think I need to take it off of autofocus. That's what I need to do. I don't really want to mess about with the settings now, because knowing me, I'll do something completely wrong. Okay, that's the 1 grey 2. Just over the top here. And then I'm going to get the gold again. No, I'm going to get my Bistre. And I'm going to use the Bistre to map in some clumps of fur. Again, I'm not trying to get this as accurate to the reference photo. I'm using the reference photo as a reference for fur direction where the fur's falling. But I am just following the fur direction from the reference photo and the tonal values. And then the rest of it is being made my own piece. So this is still the Bistre, and I'm using the Bistre to get some nice detailing in here. And then the light red violet, again, just to create some shadows in these clumps. So it's all about drawing the clumps of fur. That's all we're doing, we're just drawing clumps of fur. Right, then picking up my Venetian Red, and I'm using light pressure. Again, thinking for a future tutorial, or maybe a Patreon tier when I do a Patreon. I'd quite like to do maybe a tutorial where maybe I've got the eye in and the areas around the eye, and I do more focused parts of a tutorial. So I'd still give you the piece to draw, and we talk through areas, but maybe not a full real-time piece. So I'll talk through like how to create the colour of this like brown fur, and then I'll be like, okay, this is how I've done this part of the face. Next part I'm just going to do parts of the ear, and then you finish the piece off. I'm thinking something like that may help you with your confidence, because you've had somebody guide you through the beginning stages and how to start, but then you're having to take what I'm teaching you and what I'm sort of hopefully teaching you, and then taking that and doing it on your own piece. So that may be coming in the future. Back to the cinnamon. So yeah, I'm thinking of something like that. Maybe on a smaller piece and an easier dog. Maybe like a black dog with short fur. And then we'll take it from there and just see how people find it. I'm just going to add ivory as a base layer here, because we're going to start adding some detail and darkening up areas on this part of the head. Back to the cinnamon. But yeah, I'm hoping I am helping you guys in some way, and that you're learning. Gold. Have a lot of tutorials planned. So yeah, beige red now, and the beige red is just going to help us with that blending and smoothing out over the top of that gold area. Right, so we need to darken some of these areas up again, and we need to add some details. So back in with the Nougat. And this is where we're going to start getting some nice detailing coming in. We're darkening areas. We've got a nice mid-tone sort of area. We just need to darken it up. Just going to sharpen my Nougat. You want nice sharp points now, because we're getting to a point where we're going to start adding details. And on the hot press paper, adding details is a lot easier when you've got a really sharp pencil. So I've got my Nougat, and I'm just going to... Oh, in pigment. Hang on. This is what happens whenever I sharpen that pencil. Right, so the Nougat. And just going to come in using sort of medium pressure, harder pressure now. And I'm really following that fur direction, and I'm really starting to map in these clumps of fur. And this is really going to start adding detail now. Over the top. Remember, we still have quite a bit of work to do, but we're just getting these first stages of this dog's fur down. And I'm going to take Nougat up here as well. Short pencil strokes because the fur is short. I do think by having done sort of this head, we can really start working on the ear next. It's going to make it easier. And then the Nougat there. Right, and then taking the copper, and I'm going over the top of this now with the copper. This needs to be a little sharper ideally, but I can work with this. Okay, and I'm going to bring this copper over some of this area as well. And then picking up the Caput Mortuum violet. I need to sharpen mine. This I want really sharp because this is going to be my shadows and it's going to add some more detail to the fur. So the Caput Mortuum Violet, I may use the Caput Mortuum, but for now the Caput Mortuum Violet. And I'm just going to start bringing some little details, the darker fur lines into this portrait. Okay, and along here. So I have a couple of dog tutorials planned for the YouTube channel. What kind of wildlife would you guys maybe want to see? I'm thinking of doing some wildlife tutorials, just as a little bit of variety, and for those that don't always want to draw dogs. But yeah, let me know what you want to see. I'm thinking of fox at some point. I know it's more of a canid species, but I do want to draw a fox. So there will be a fox, but if there's anything in particular you guys quite fancy drawing, let me know. I've had some ideas and some suggestions already, but I'll take any. Okay, so that's the Caput Mortuum. I'm actually quite happy with that Caput Mortuum. So I'm just going to grab the Nougat, and I actually want to just blend out here a bit more. So this is a little different than the reference photo, but I feel like I want this Nougat on my drawing to just come out a little bit further. And then I'm going to go over the top of that Nougat with the cinnamon. So this is the thing, when you're doing original drawings, you can make the piece your own. It doesn't have to be directly like the photo. This isn't a commission, so we're not drawing somebody's dog as the commission. Right, I'm then going to take my Bistre. So if we were drawing somebody's dog, we would make sure that we're drawing it as accurate as possible, and I wouldn't be changing colours. And I'd be following the reference photo a lot more closely than I am doing with this. And then over the top of that Bistre, I'm just taking the copper. So you can see with this kind of colour fur, I really do use a lot of layers and a lot of different colours just to help build it up and add that depth to the fur. I'm then going to take my burnt umber, and I've not got that out, hang on. I'm then taking the burnt umber and coming back into this section and just adding some texture lines to the fur with the burnt umber, and I'm going to bring it along here as well. So I'm making sure that all these colours play nicely together and that they work well across the whole piece. I need my burnt sienna, and this area needs to be a lot redder in tone. So I'm going to use harder pressure. Just along here and blend that outwards. Grab the Nougat, just to help with that blending. Okay, I'm happy with that. Just using the burnt sienna again, I'm just going to bring it. Now this little eyebrow area, we're not going to finish yet. I want to bring in this little bit of fur coming up and over her head again. Because this overlaps that fur. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of looking at my reference photo and thinking ahead. Is there any areas that are overlapping another area? What can I do to make my process of drawing this easier? I'm just going back to the, I'm going to take the brown ochre. And along here, I just want to outline here, just where I can see this like tone. And then the light red violet just over the top of that to just knock down that yellowness. Okay. And then taking that Venetian Red and sort of coming up from behind this eyebrow and blending outwards. And then hopefully this will give us a nice blend. And then just take that cinnamon again over the top. There's a mark on my paper there. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying my best, guys. I'm sorry, but this tutorial is... I'm not doing very well, am I? I know I'm not. And then the... I'm going to take the burnt umber. Is the one I want. Burnt umber. Again, just detailing. So you can see how we've gone from like a load of colour on the page to now having some detail and some nice tonal values underneath that detail. Okay, yeah. Right, let's get some of this fur in behind her eyebrow. So I'm using ivory as the base layer. And I'm just sort of going halfway along where I know that eyebrow is going to be. I'm then going to take the cinnamon and I'm just sort of coming as if the eyebrow's there up and over. Make sense? So I know what the structure of this dog's face is by looking at the reference photo. So I'm just imagining what this fur's doing. So it's going up and over. And that's what my pencil strokes are reflecting. And then it's coming round this head. I feel like this eyebrow is going to be quite large, actually. I think, yeah, may have to do quite a bit of changing with some of this. We'll see. Sorry, just move this and then bring that cinnamon down. And this is just covering all of this base layer now. With the cinnamon. And then going over the top of that base layer with the warm grey one. And that's just going to help with the blending, but just knock down that pink tone ever so slightly. Okay, now taking the Venetian Red, and I'm just marking that I think the eyebrow is coming up here now, so I've actually got the eyebrow a little too low on my drawing so far, so you can see how much height I need to add to my eyebrow. Just follow if you need to add more height to yours or not. Just going to bring that Venetian Red in here. Grab my burnt sienna. And I'm just going to bring that with sort of longer strokes. Now I can see like an orangey tone, so I think I'm going to grab, I'm going to try the, oh no, we'll try the Sanguine. Terracotta might have been better, but I've got the Sanguine here, so I'll just use that. Just where I can see this like orange tone along the edge of the eyebrow, basically. Okay, I'm then going to take my Caput Mortuum and I'm going to darken along here again, but I'm using the Caput Mortuum along this eyebrow now. Now you can see I'm not doing any of the longer hairs because we've got to get this part of the fur in first, but I just want to get this in. And then use the Sanguine again just along here. Okay, now taking my cinnamon again and oops, just gonna smooth out the back of her head here. So it's just another layer, that's all it is, another layer of cinnamon, just to help smooth out this layer, the layer below it. So when I'm talking about smoothing out the pencils, it's generally just another layer of pencil over the top. Okay, back to the ivory as a base layer. Okay, so I'm bringing this quite far out because I can see where I need to go with this. So it's the ivory, and then I'm going to go over all of the ivory with the cinnamon again. Now I'm using short pencil strokes, and I want this to look really smooth. So the fur on this part of the head looks really smooth. So you want a nice smooth layer here. Right, so we still have part of this fur to add. I need to sort of bring this patch fur further out. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to start off with the burnt sienna and use this to help map in the fur. And now I'm going to use this burnt sienna, again, when I sharpen. And I'm just going to map in fur direction and sort of how far out I need this patch of fur to come. Okay. And I'm just going to add a few more layers. Okay, that looks good. Then got the Bistre, and then again, just bringing that down. And then back to that burnt sienna. Just a few lines over. Then the Sanguine ever so slightly down here. Okay, then take my Venetian Red. Over the top there. Okay, now we can start to see that we're getting the shape of her head in nicely. I'm going to bring the Venetian Red very lightly down here as well. And back to that cinnamon. It doesn't look like we've done much, but we've really built up this fur and the details now. Okay, take the gold. Just bring that over. Okay, right, and then back to the ivory. It's a base layer. This really needs to go in a pencil extender. Don't be like me, make sure you put pencils in an extender. And then back to the cinnamon. Venetian Red. Then we'll be able to start overlapping this eyebrow and making this part of the face look 3D. And then the warm grey too. Just over here. Okay, I'm just going to take the Beige Red along the top of her head here. Okay, yeah. Now taking the Caput Mortuum Violet, and this is where we're going to start bringing these hairs over. So I'm just going to start from the bottom and bring it up and over. Bottom, up and over. and we're just going to overlap some fine hairs. So I'm tapering those edges. Along here. I can see that I need to darken a lot of this eye again, which I can do after. Okay, pretty happy actually. I don't want too much detail there. Okay, right, let's get this other eye in. So back to the ivory as a base layer, and I'm just going to cover where this eye is. Now you'll see at the moment that this dog's looking quite pink, and that's fine. All we've got in really are the highlights. We've got all this top of the head is quite highlighted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, once we've got this eye bit in, I'm going to do a bit of the fur down here, because that's darker, and it'll just show you the difference in these tone values, and not to panic that we've got a pink looking dog on what should be a liver dog. Well, brown dog, called liver is the colour that we call it. Right, that's the base layer down. So I'm going to start off with the cinnamon again, just following that fur direction. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with the Nougat, and I'm going to bring this Nougat where I can see this sort of pinkish, brownish, greyish tone, and I'm going to use the Nougat for that. It's a really weird term to explain, but that's kind of the colour that I'm seeing, so use the Nougat. And I'm just tapering that edge lightly outwards. I'm then going to use the Caput Mortuum Violet very lightly over the top of this Nougat, and that'll give me that purplish tone. And then go to my burnt sienna for some of this reddish orange tone on the actual. This is like the second eyelid, I guess, the eyebrow for the dog. And I'm going to get my burnt ochre, if I have one. So this is my burnt ochre for those orangey tones. Back to the burnt sienna. Bring that down here. Okay, back to my Venetian Red. And that's going to go over the top of all of these. Again, I'm making sure that I'm following that fur direction all the time. And then my cinnamon. To the warm grey 2. And then I think I'm actually going to take my walnut brown very lightly. Just going to mark in this darker section of fur that we've got going on. And I'm going to take this walnut brown and I'm just going to really darken up this eyebrow. This section of her eye is really dark. It's a bit too light on the drawing. So I'm just going to come in with this walnut brown and just really darken here up a bit more. The Venetian Red just along here. Okay, right. And then going back to the brown ochre. Very light pressure. Not pressed hard at all, just slowly building up the layers. And then the light red violet. And then we'll go over the top of all of that with the beige red. Okay, right. Let's get some of this darker fur in and we will start to see the difference between the highlights and the shadows. So back to the ivory, and again get this base layer in down by the side of this ear. The ear is so curly. Right, we have the earring. I am first going to start out with the Nougat. Am I? No, I'm not. I'm going to start off with the burnt umber. Very light pressure. And I'm going to bring the burnt umber across all of the ivory. And all the way down here. You see it's light pressure, not pressing hard at all, following that fur direction still though. Okay, now taking the Caput Mortuum, again light pressure, and I'm not pressing too hard on this because I'm actually going to take the red violet in over the top of all of this. That's the Caput Mortuum. Right, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to get my Van Dyck Brown, and I'm just going to map in with the Van Dyck Brown these dark colours. So we've got this kind of shadow underneath this like big eyebrow. And again, I'm not worried about it being accurate to the reference photo. You have to remember with fur, and especially longer fur, as soon as this photo was taken and this dog moved, this fur will have changed direction. And that's something that we're going to take a lot more consideration of when it comes to doing the ear. And along here. But when it's an original, we don't need it to be exact. I'm just sort of following the form of this piece, but making sure that it's still my own. And that's going to be darker here. Okay, and then take the Nougat, and I'm going to go over the top of this in this corner of the face with a Nougat. You see how we're just really starting to see the build up of this tone. Back to my Van Dyck Brown, I'm just going to blend that outwards a little bit rather than having that stark line. Right, now we're going to get the red violet. So with the red violet, we're going to go over all of this. And again, I'm making sure now that I'm following that fur direction. That's sort of curving downwards into here. And instantly we're going to start seeing this reddish brown fur that she's got just sort of come to life a bit more. Now again, we're going to have to come in with some of the shadows and really build up these darker tones. But already you can see why we've got pink in the fur. We've got the highlights and now we're getting the shadows. I feel like I need to blend a little bit more on that head though. We'll have a look once we've got this area in. And I'm just darkening any areas that I need to be that little bit darker with the red violet. Let me just move my chair. Sorry, I'm knocking everything. Okay. So this is all the red violet now. Okay, and then I'm going to take the Caput Mortuum, where I haven't got that red violet, sort of in the centre of this fur. Use the Caput Mortuum there. And then I'm going to grab the Walnut Brown, and where it's dark, use this Walnut Brown. May actually, we could have used, I'm wondering whether to use the Payne's Grey. That'll really give a nice deep purpley shadow. Let's grab the Payne's Grey. So I've got the Payne's Grey and I'm just gonna, especially along like this edge of the head, use this Payne's Grey. Do you see how dark that looks already? With these reddish purple tones, by using this blue undertone, I'm getting a really nice shadow. Really nice shadow there. Bring that up into this. I'm going to bring it into these darker shadowed areas. Along the fur here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my cinnamon and go over all of this. And then the Caput Mortuum violet again. Some extra details. And look at how dark this patch of fur is now. The burnt umber. And then the red violet, and I'm just sort of pushing this red violet up and under this eyebrow. Create that look of those bits of fur overlapping. Bring that down. Right, I'm going to take this Van Dyck Brown first, just along here. And a little bit in there, right. And then take that red violet. I'm just going to bring this into this bit of head here. And very lightly, just to help blend all of this outwards. So this is the red violet. Go into that lighter tones. And then take the cinnamon, and I'm just going to blend over this again, and over the top. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm happy with that. just needed that red violet in there. Okay, can we see the difference now between the pink tones and the dark tones? And now I've got the sun coming through, hang on. Right, you should be able to see that better now. So we've got the darker tones here coming into the lighter tones, and you can see that difference. Just taking that Payne's grey, I just want to blend here a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit more of this ivory, and I'm just going to do another section here of the fur. And this will help just show that difference in the tonal values. So, ivory base layer, and then taking the burnt umber. And again, following that fur direction. It's sort of curving round her face here. And then it's going to curve along here. So this bit's taken probably a bit longer than I wanted, but I hope I've managed to explain it a bit clearer to you. I know she's going to be quite a long piece to do, but yeah, I hope it's been clear enough for you and that I'm not going too quickly. This is the Dyck Brown. We're going to definitely start the ear next time. And I think we're just going to break the ear down into little sections. So maybe one part we'll do the ear. So I'd like to do like some of the curls on this side of her ear. And then maybe the part after we'll do more of her face, and we'll just keep going back and forth. Because the ear can get overwhelming with all those curls. Okay, so this is the Dyck Brown. And then the Caput Mortuum. So she's definitely going to be quite a long tutorial, is this one. Which I hope is okay for you guys. Again, you don't have to follow them. They're just here if anybody does want to follow them. She may be longer than the border collie at this point, I'm not quite sure. Okay, then we're going to take the red violet, and I'm going to really start now darkening up. Hopefully though, you can tell now, we were looking quite pink before, but now we're starting to get this darker section of fur in. We're getting this nice chocolatey brown dog. Mainly using purple tones. The colour. Okay, I'm going to go over that with the cinnamon. And then I'm going to take that Payne's grey, and I'm just going to use this as a shadow. And then back to the red violet over the top of that Payne's grey. And then I'm going to take the Nougat, and I'm going to just take this Nougat over the top of it all. Sorry about the noise of my laptop, it's just decided to restart. Hopefully it's not too distracting, but we're near the end of this tutorial, so... Okay, so I'm hoping that you can see just that difference here. With how we've got this nice dark fur really starting to appear. Just want to get this little section in, and then I think I'll end the tutorial here. because this area that I'm going to map in with the ivory base layer, this is going to be like a reference point for later on in the piece. So I'm going to take my burnt umber again over the top of this. This area here is a really dark shadow, so we just got to build it up. The Caput Mortuum. And again, I followed fur direction all the time. Even though it's a dark shadow, I'm still following that fur direction. The red violet. I'm just using that straight line there because I want a nice sharp edge where that ear is going to be. And then the Payne's Grey. Again, sharp edge. And then I'm just going to take that Dyck Brown. Over the top. Like so. Okay, I'm just going to bring this down here as well. Grab my Nougat. And over the ends of this bit of the eyebrow. Like so. Okay, I am happy with this. So far we are really starting to see this liver chocolatey colour coming through her fur now. So yeah, the next part we're going to start on this ear. And I do think I'm going to do it section by section. So we'll do one section of the ear, a bit more for face, another section of the ear. And that will just help you break down that ear and not become too overwhelmed with it. Obviously, if you're following along at a later date, you can just skip ahead if you just want to do all the ear parts. They'll all be labelled as an ear. But until then, I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Like and comment the video because that really helps my channel out. And I will catch you all soon. Bye, everybody.